Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and do you remember when I reviewed and unboxed the wargs, centaurs, orcs, mummies, and war trolls from the Dark Alliance miniature gaming line of 1/72nd scale figurines? I do, and I liked those miniatures so much that I decided to go back and order just a couple more. So today we are going to be unboxing and presenting the Elves Set 2, specifically Set 005, out of the entire line of miniatures that's produced by Dark Alliance, which also has Light Alliance, and I need to show that. Some of these miniatures are actually part of the Light Alliance line. I assume you can team up the Light Alliance and set them against the Dark Alliance. But not only Elves, but also Dwarves. This is Set 1 of the Dwarves, Set 7 of the whole line, so these are pretty early on, but they're still very accessible, and you can get these off of eBay. However, since it only made sense for the shipping to get even more, I decided also to get the Goblin Warriors, Set 2, Set 042 out of the whole line. And as a bonus, we're also going to be checking out Heavy Warriors of the Dead. And just because it's me and I tend to go overboard, we're going to go ahead and get the Cyclops out of the way as well. And why not also get the Cimmerians? This is the last box, I promise. So today we're unboxing and checking out 6 different collections of sculpts. And all in all, after the multi-shipping discount and multiple products and everything, this ended up being about, I want to say $60 USD total. Some of these boxes cost differently than others, but just to go over each box and its details before we go any further, I'm not going to be looking at the back and showing you the pictures of the sculpts back there, because the pictures honestly don't do these justice at all. They're not going to be the same color. They're not bad pictures by any stretch, but you could take better ones, I think, and not have to do the white outlines. But I'm not picky. I'm not complaining about that. We're going to be looking at these either way. This is the Cimmerians Set 2 set. There are 33 miniatures in 11 different poses here. The Goblin Warriors, there are 48 miniatures inside this box, 1/72nd scale, 12 different poses. The Dwarves, 44 miniatures in here in 11 poses. The Cyclops miniatures, we have 12 figures in 4 different poses. Larger guys, just like the war trolls from the last episode. The Heavy Warriors of the Dead, 40 miniatures in this box, about 10 different poses. Elves, 40 miniatures in 10 poses. So let's check these out. And because I got so much hate last time for ripping the miniatures off of their sprues with my bare hands like some sort of Neanderthal caveman, I decided to get... Man, okay, funny story. I have a pair of authentic flush cutters around here somewhere. They're in a little box that came with my 3D printer, but I can't find it, so we're going to use the Dollar Tree wire snippers today. Open these bad boys up. Again, these are the Elves, 72nd scale, 40 figures in 10 poses. And we do have our 10 poses here, and we'll be able to show them off in glorious 4K detail. Actually, we're probably filming it 1080, but never mind that. All of these miniatures have different sculpts, so they have different roles in your army, should you wish for them to have different rules, play by different mechanics. Our warriors that have the longer weapons will of course have slightly longer range. The ones that have shields will have higher defense, and then we have some, like this character here, who has the Warhorn, who will be able to summon others to his aid. We don't have any ranged attackers. We do have what looks like a monarch, and this could possibly be a magic user for this class. If you are interested in taking many different miniatures of the same kind and building units, rather than just having like 4 of every single kind, then you would be able to do that. Sort of compile your own army. So I've actually ahead of time taken my snippers and taken a bunch of these guys off of their sprues for a bit of a diorama that we'll go over when we look at this stuff closer and more dynamically. We'll escape this overhead view and check these things out on the board. I've got a lovely little hex map here, neoprene map, that we can use with these miniatures to kind of illustrate one of the ways you can use them, and I'll be pulling out the other miniatures later as well. Okay, I don't really want to get into the Cyclops. Let's get into the Dwarves, and I'll show you the size difference between the Dwarves. Yes, some of these did come in like Ziploc bags inside the boxes, and others did not. The size difference between the Dwarves and their hated rival, the Elves. Our Dwarves are finely sculpted. These guys are made of an awesome material, and I love the details that the sculptor was able to put into these guys. They are easily usable as their own race, as themselves, in whatever you'd like. Again, they didn't skimp on the details whatsoever. The details are crisp, they're clean. The sculpts are just really, really good. And this is crazy because this is such an early line in this series. And I would think that the sculptor at this point was still just kind of starting out, but no, these guys look great. These are some of my favorite miniatures in this whole set. And the dwarves are set 7. And yet I've seen later on, like the mummies, set 45, the quality does seem to suffer a little bit in terms of details. So again, we have a lot of different sculpts here, lots of different weapons and configurations. Definitely some folks who would be able to reach enemies a little farther back. Some have shields. No warhorn types in this one. It is worth noting, since this is just set 1 of the dwarves, and that they obviously have multiple sets of different races, that they probably go into different types of roles or classes or what have you. So you will have dwarves later on in different box sets that have things like bows or war horns, or maybe even cannons, because this line does actually have cannons. Those boxes are kind of limited. They're just a couple of cannons in the box, so I wasn't too excited to try those. We're going to go ahead and get into the Goblin Warriors set 2. These come on the circular sprue, the wheel. I'll show you these guys off their sprue as well. And we have, just as the box says, 12 poses here. Something that puzzled me about the back of this box, so I really quickly glanced through here and I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 sculpts about 5 times before I realized I was doing it wrong and that this was one sculpt. So truly 12 sculpts on this. Back to our goblins. They are short, they are menacing, they are myriad in the amounts of chaos that they can rack upon their enemies. We have wooden shields, we have rudimentary weapons, but they are very varied in style. Looks like the goblins are very resourceful. They have a lot of different ways to make their weapons. They have a lot of different types of weapons. You could apply all sorts of stats to these guys. This is a banner, or standard bearer rather, and he's got a curved knife. He's not just there to help bring up the mood, he is there to also slay. Sorry about that. We have a flail user. He doesn't care if his opponent is using a shield. His opponent won't be needing the shield. This guy is beating on a war drum, and he has an axe at his side. These guys are not without their weaponry. They are really, really cool. I like them a lot. I am a fan of goblins anyway. These goblins, yeah, they're awesome. Can I just say I love this size of box? Like, there's no unnecessary space. Some of these miniatures do take up less space than the whole box, but like, you can also just collapse these. Since they're not lidded, you can take these and collapse them, or you can store them to where, you know, everybody can see what collections you have. Put them in your bookshelf or what have you. They'll fit wonderfully so. Big fan of the boxes. Box art, obviously a lot of these are inspired by the Lord of the Rings. I'm not too sure where the imagery might be from. There might be some licensed imagery being used, or it might just be kind of like traced over. Yeah, a lot of people pointed out in the last video that the trolls and orcs were very much Lord of the Rings style. So we'll go into the Cimmerians next, because I think the Cimmerians are pretty exciting. It's really awesome of them to recognize this distinct human tribe of warriors who are just extra. The Cimmerians, though, do highlight one editorial problem. This box says that there are 33 figures in 11 poses, and there are actually, while the back of the box does detail 11 poses, there are only 10 poses on a sprue. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 poses. So somebody's missing here. But you know what? Never mind that, because my box set actually came with 44 miniatures. I had a 4th sprue that I've taken all the miniatures off of. Again, we're going to look at all those up close after we get this sort of preview unboxing done. The Cimmerians are another one where the details are awesome. Like the details here, all of these really would have been suitable for large miniatures, and they just took the miniature model and shrank it down. Either this is the work of master sculpting, or the technology is just finally there where they can sculpt and model in a program perhaps, and just be able to really zoom in on all these details and make these guys gigantic, to be able to sculpt out the beards and everything properly in like an impossible to replicate fidelity, and then go ahead and have those models sent to somebody to actually machine out of a block of aluminum for the injection mold process. And being that they're injection molded, it's just a fantastic material. This Injection molded plastic, I am biased, but it is my favorite. It is absolutely my favorite material. I'll take injection molded mass-produced miniatures over resin prints any day. And I like resin prints. I have plenty of those. They're very strong, durable, but I'm always gonna like the injection molded better. Again, 172 miniatures. They won't go with every game, but after you play with these for a while, it's kind of difficult to not get hooked. We're going to go into the heavy warriors of the dead next and kind of see how they compare with the mummies. It's a very similar material and a similar color this time around, but the heavy warriors of the dead, despite being made of the same sort of almost translucent lower quality material, they have more detail and more substance to them than the mummies later on. So our heavy infantry here, you can't really tell that they're dead from the miniatures, so this is where the details kind of fly in the face of all the compliments that I added earlier. There are details here. They are really cool. You can tell what the weapons are. You can tell where the armor ends and other things begin, but you just can't tell that these guys are necessarily dead. And I don't know that you'd be able really to paint them up as such unless you made sure that all of their faces were white as if they were skulls. And as long as you did that, I guess everything would be fine. But these guys, my point is, it's a strength or an advantage that they don't necessarily look dead. You can make them into a faction of living just as easily as you could dead, because again, that detail's not really there prominently enough to make that relevant. So these guys could just be knights that were aligned with the wrong faction, and now you've got to take them down. I don't want to use the baggies anymore. We're just gonna put them in. So 40 miniatures there in 10 different poses. I stole one of the sprues, took all of them off, and we'll be looking at those guys on the battlefield here and on a couple of other maps. And finally, we've got the Cyclops. The Cyclops are where this talented sculptor's details can really be seen. 4 different sculpts, all really well done, really cool, distinct sculpts. We've got a Cyclops carrying a giant club with a metal axe blade fitted onto the end. Another one with a giant boulder getting ready to hurl it. That's definitely a ranged attacker. We're gonna flip them around. Look at the backs. We've got a lot of back hair, just unnecessary detail that actually really lends a lot of coolness to the character, a lot of uniqueness, distinctiveness. Look at the backs of these guys before we flip them around. I've got my hand up just to make sure the camera stays in focus, because it would really be a bummer to have all this blurriness up against the camera. I'm aware I can lock the focus, but I'm going to be doing a lot of pulling away, so no need to do that. And then just changing the focus over and over again. We have a Cyclops wearing full armor, almost full armor. He's got a weak spot though. His leg is exposed. And then we have one more raising a hammer in the air. This guy could actually be pretty friendly. He could be a blacksmith. He could be going to tear down a wall for you if you pay him enough gold. These guys could be used in a variety of situations. Want to compare them with the War Troll? The Cyclops, in my mind, should be much bigger, but the Troll is much bigger than the Cyclops. You're not going to mess with the Cyclops as a human, but as a Cyclops, you're not ever going to mess with a Troll. The Cyclops will step on you and kill you if you're a human. The Troll will mess you up bad, but you'll still be alive. Just absolute torture. All bones broken, singular eye poked out. So that is the long and short of the second series of boxes. And I may order a third. It'll be slim pickings at that point, because I've gotten all the ones that I think are really, really cool. But I want to take a look now and see what these guys look like standing out on the board. There we go. I talked about these boxes. They're at Walmart. They should not ever cost more than $3 or $4, maybe even less. Look around the different areas of the store. There is a dedicated craft section where you can get sectioned boxes just like this, but very close to that craft section where they have the spools of thread and the, there's a word. I'm not thinking of what the word is, but these sections are specifically sized for those items, and they're in the sewing aisle, and they should be on the floor, the bottom shelf. You can also head all the way across the store to the back wall fishing aisle area and look for tackle boxes that have the adjustable sections. And I mean the one tier, not tackle box necessarily, but just this sort of one layer tray for your tackle, and those should be even cheaper. I know at my local big box blue store, they've got some that look like they are defects in the injection mold process because they have swirls of blue, but they're passing it off as the feature. It's like, whoa, look at these swirly blue and clear plastic tackle holders. And they're only like $2.50 or something like that. And they've got the adjustable walls. Anyways, very useful. Stock up on them. I don't use these for HeroQuest because there's just too many miniatures in each group for me to feel like I'm using each compartment wisely. But this is perfect for 1/72 miniatures because look at all of them. I'm holding every single one that I could possibly want. I've got room for entire more sprues if I want to take apart more sprues and place them in here to double up these armies when I get to deciding how many of each unique sculpt I would like to have. And I've even got some of the Ancient Wars miniatures in here as well. I've got 2 sections dedicated for each one, so I can have a total of, what did I say, 4 of each of the 12 sculpts that come with that line in the 3 colors. Oh yeah. In these 6 compartments, I have 144 miniatures, just to put that into perspective. All right, important to note, some of these guys do not stand up on their own very well. You will need to apply some twist, maybe the hot water trick, wherein you put some hot water into a cup, dunk the miniature in, shape them the way you want, and then dunk them into a cup of cold water to get them to freeze back into place. It works like a charm. The hotter the water, obviously, the better. You'll begin to feel how the miniature is a lot more bendy in the hot water. I like to make a pot of coffee without the coffee and then use that. I don't stick my fingers into the hot coffee pot. I dunk the miniature in, being very careful not to burn myself, pull it out, make the adjustment, and then dunk it into the cold water to freeze it back into place. That's one of the methods. There are many though. Interestingly enough, the colors don't really seem to represent specific factions. In this world, the centaurs are cast in this red and the goblins are in the same red, but I don't associate centaurs and goblins to be like together. But I suppose it's possible in this IP that they could be, but I mean, it's really up to you. I would also, if you're going to invest in the Dark Alliance and Light Alliance sets, as you are unboxing them, have yourself your pair of snippers, obviously not these, but your real flush cutters, and have yourself a pad of high grain sanding pad. Grit is the word I'm looking for. Something like 240 grit, whatever. Pull this off, snip it off, and then take it and then just lightly go across your sanding pad. And then that should help flatten out, take off all of the aberrations, the gate, as we used to call them. Maybe we still call them that. I don't know. I haven't worked in plastics in a long time. By the way, I used to work in plastics. That's why I love injection molded stuff. I have not given these guys the hot water treatment at all, so I'm just kind of putting out the ones that are standing up. I wanted to show you the height difference here between the dwarf and the elf. So pretty good representation of elf versus dwarf. My opinion, the elves are of course tall and slender. You can tell that they're elves because you can see the pointy ears on all of them. The dwarfs, short. I don't think I realized that this guy was in the pack. Did I call him out? The hornblower? I think I made the comment that there wasn't a hornblower there. Maybe that was something else. I'm getting my wires crossed. Okay, well, we're going to take a few of these Ancient Wars minis and just spot them around the map as well. These guys, you don't have to take off of sprues. They're not part of the Dark Alliance or Light Alliance. They're the Temu Knights. And they all stand perfectly well. They don't have any sort of wobble or anything like that. They're not falling over, even on my neoprene mat, which is not perfectly level and flat. And with 12 sculpts and like 100 knights to 200 knights per order, you can absolutely get the number of sculpts that you would need in that sort of sculpt ratio. Now the orcs are gray and the Cimmerians are gray, so it's like factions together? No, but maybe similar environments. I don't know, they have so many different sculpts. Of course I wouldn't expect them to have all sorts of different colors for each one. It just wouldn't be practical. I want to show you the Cimmerians versus the orcs though. This is kind of like barbarian versus goblin almost. This height difference is unreal. The Cimmerians are beasts of men. They're absolutely total giga chads. The orcs in this series are a lot shorter. They're a lot more harum, whatever that means. I'm gonna go ahead and show you an orc versus a goblin, give you a little more context here. In this game, they're not too dissimilar. The goblins are a little more funny in their proportions. The orcs are more straightforward. The goblins have pot bellies. The orcs are all muscle, as one would expect, but they're about almost the same height, with this goblin actually being taller than this orc, which is really funny. And to the orcs, I imagine more than a little aggravating. Yeah, so my standard bearing goblin is just not standing up. That's okay. He can't bear to stand. He has to bear a stand, but never mind. All right, our monsters are on the battlefield. We have orcs on hexes advancing. Those aren't orcs. There's a couple of orcs with Cimmerians. They decided to team up. They are on the side of the wargs and the centaurs, and they've even got their own war troll. Clearly the player who rolled up this army had no idea what they were really doing. They thought they were going to be diverse and have a bunch of different colors on the battlefield to indicate that they could be a jack of all trades, but they might get absolutely smashed by the opponent. Literally and figuratively, the opponent has a Cyclops in their army as well as a war troll, a bunch of goblins who are very skilled as to how to turn the tides of battle by being the black sheep, and not one, not two, but 3 different factions of the Empire of Man working in tandem to fight against this silly noob's force. There are also a host of elves on the coast. One of them is taking a well-deserved elvish nap, which is like a regular nap but lasts for 100 years. And it's impossible to say whose side they will fight on. Perhaps they will simply defend their coast while laughing at the efforts of the 2 armies as they smash into each other and reduce each other's numbers. All their lovely, delicious, non-elven numbers being destroyed in the battlefield. Will these HeroQuest? Technically, yes. Will they any other board game? Absolutely, technically, yes. You can just use these in place of miniatures that you have. They are a small scale. It tracks that, these aren't going to look exactly right on your board, but use the rule of cool. If you guys really like them, use them. And it is possible, there is just about enough variety here for you to take and replace every miniature in some of the board games that you play. So you could actually just completely take out all of the 28mm and 32mm scale characters, players, monsters that you have and replace them with these smaller variety ones that are much lighter and easier to pack around in large groups than those bigger miniatures. Just some of the pros of having these smaller miniatures around. I did it again. I put them all together in sort of a grand showing, and let's move this hex board out of the way and show these guys off on the dungeon mat. This feels correct. This feels more me. Walking through the corridors of a tile grid, a 1-inch tile grid, we have, if you're not going to stand up, you're not going to be invited to the dungeon anymore, okay? No sleeping on the job. Okay, centaur. More like sleep tight-tar. These dungeon corridors are not nearly as threatening when you're able to fit 2 minis to a square. Then you realize the monsters also can fit 2 minis to a square, which makes these dungeons a lot more dangerous and uncomfortable. You can take your miniatures and place them all on one base. So you can have like one HeroQuest base or whatever you'd like to use. Glue 2 of them or 3 of them onto one base, and you can move them as a unit. And then you can sort of have them all live at the same time, all die at the same time sort of thing. So you don't have to worry about taking units off the base, anything like that. Or you can represent the amount of units on the base using a separate card and tracker. And then the idea there is that your base looks the same always, right? But the card will show the changes as you are going along, wrecking and being wrecked by the other enemies and entities in the dungeon. In this dungeon, all bad is aligned and all good is aligned. What is good might be subjective, but I think we're just all going to inherently agree that goblins and mummies and heavy warriors of the dead and orcs are all on the same side, fighting all of the heroes, and the heroes in this case will include the dwarves, the elves, and the Cimmerians, along with the ancient wars and knights. So I'm not going to show any furniture with this loadout. We are just going to be showing off the corridors, not even the rooms. These guys are just going through the corridors in groups on their tiles. They are thriving, hydrating, staying in their lane. They are very demure. Sorry, I have to use those words legally in order to push the video up in the algorithm. And that is the presentation here of our super miniatures, our mini miniatures being used. Whoops, looks like he's sleeping on the job, or maybe he died on the job, which is actually pretty common. Miniatures being used in a dungeon setting. Again, ancient armies, or ancient wars rather, holding up really well, standing in place. Dark Alliance, this isn't really a contest or a competition. Some of them falling over, but you can get that corrected. And then you have amazing tiny sculpts to use in your setting. You can really use these to recreate a ton of fantasy scenes out there from pop culture. We can have Gimli and Legolas getting ready to toss one another over the chasm. Kind of want to pull out the Dragon Strike boards next, but This video has actually gone on long enough, so do tell me what you think in the comments below, and I'll be happy to show off more of this stuff in different settings, different contexts, using different comparisons. Let me know what you want to see, and I'll do it. And be sure to comment down below what it is that you would like to see, as well as anything else. I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of these miniatures in general. Still a cool loadout? Do you suggest other boxes, other lines? I know there are still quite a few out there that I could take a look at, not even necessarily from the Dark and Light Alliance's lines, but other ones that are a bit closer to home as well. Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye for now.